Hello everyone, good evening. Lakshmi so effectively laid out the digital foundations for how an enterprise must accelerate their AI journey. But I, for one moment, want to talk about something totally different. Democracy and government. Can you tell me what's the relationship of democracy, government and people? Anyone? Exactly, they talk about of the people, by the people, for the people. And I'm going to talk about a product that we have built, and it is engineered for AI, with AI, by AI. So what would you call such a product? Any idea? Anyway, we call it ISO plus multi-cloud network, right? So now I'm going to take the journey back in terms of why we build it and how we build it. You with me? Okay, so, how many of you are using more than one cloud in your business today? Right? More than half. And I'm sure even if you're not using more than one public cloud, you're using a public and a private, you have your own data centers. And even if you really are using one cloud, I'm sure they're using multiple regions within the cloud. The idea is, the multi-cloud is now a thing. I mean, it is no longer on people's wish list. It is now the default strategy that most enterprises have adopted, either due to, they want to be more resilient. They have seen the outages, these cloud providers have. Or sometimes, they have been forced to become multi-cloud because, they might have acquired a company and that company was using a different cloud, and now they have to deal with how to integrate, these applications running on different clouds. So, multi-cloud is no longer, no longer a strategy. It is the default operating mode for most enterprises, right? So we don't have to debate, cloud versus multi-cloud. But the real, story begins when you get into that multi-cloud arena, right? With all the promise that multi-cloud brings, there is also this reality of complexity, right? Lakshmi talked about how each cloud, has their own way of doing things. The way you provision infrastructure, the way you configure it, the way you set policies. Each one of them now adds what we believe is a complexity score that then translates to a stealth tax that you pay on that score, right? So, what we believe and what we have seen talking to customers like yourself and reading the market tea leaves is that the more the complexity, the higher the tax you pay. And very often that's a stealth tax, you don't even realize you're paying it. So we thought, how about we make it visible? Right? Can we help you see for yourself if this is your operating mode, what would be your complexity score? So I'm going to ask my colleague Akhil, who's going to help me with, so let's bring up a calculator. Can we switch to the laptop, please? Yes. So, if somebody can tell me, otherwise I'll just use some numbers. Let's say you are on 3 clouds, and let's say the number of total regions, let's put 10 there. And let's say the number of, VPCs and VNets, that's the number of segments. Let's say using 20 of them. And let's say you have, 7 or 8 security policies spread across those clouds in different regions. And then you are, let's say, in regulated industries. Maybe you need to comply to SOC 2 standard or HIPAA or a PCI. So let's put, 4, put a number there in terms of number of compliance frameworks that you adhere to. And let's say, the number of cross-cloud connections, since you're multi-cloud. Let's put 6 there, It's just that you put these numbers, and I think you can do it for yourself. Look at your current operations and see what score do you get. And so we have this, range from a 0 to, a couple of hundreds. And then we said, okay, if you have a score, which, we believe greater than 60, that means you are paying roughly 15% complexity tax on your multi-cloud operations. And we actually will make this calculator available. You can see for yourself. When you come to a booth for demos, try it out for yourself and see where you land, right? And then simply, apply a 10 to 15% conversion on this one, and that's the tax you're paying. So if you are paying this tax, so now when I'm going to talk about the product ISO Plus multi-cloud network, that it is not just about networking, it is actually a stealth tax reduction tool. So we are going to convince you, why you invest in this tool to actually reduce the taxes. I hope, how many of people here love to pay taxes, or at least high taxes? Nobody, right? Good. So we will help you cut those taxes. So if you can switch back to the presentation. Okay, so now, we talk about how the tax manifests. So, we talk about there is configuration complexity, the number of tools you are using, each cloud may have their own native tools. Then you have the skills gap, the people you hire who might be experts in one cloud but not with the other. And then of course the total operational overhead in terms of how you manage all that stuff. If that was not bad enough in terms of dealing with this multi-cloud, here comes AI, right? AI inherently leads you to multi-cloud. You may have, you're chasing GPU clusters that may, be in the neo clouds or any of these public hyperscalers. Then you have data sitting in another cloud, right? Of course, your users are elsewhere. So now, the AI infrastructure explosion leads to another level of complexity. To add to that, right? We talk about these sovereign requirements that are coming up based on laws. A lot of these countries are passing. We have, GDPR, which has been around for a long time from EU, but then India just passed the DPDP law. USA has the Cloud Act, China has the PIPL Act. If you put all together, now data management is no longer just a storage issue, it is how you route that data within a geofence boundary becomes very important because you're using that data to train models, to build your AI applications. So this is no longer a storage problem, this is a network problem. And then of course, Lakshmi talked about inference. This is a new default application that naturally is distributed, lives in the edge. And a lot of times, companies are trying to save money by moving either compute or massive amount of data they have onto their private stores, and that is cloud repatriation. So all of that is adding up to that perfect storm. So there is a hunger for a solution to simplify this. So build something that is the opposite of complexity. So just to double click on two of the things I talked earlier. One is the AI infrastructure explosions. One of the things that AI applications do, they are very different from the traditional applications, right? Their requirements of latency in terms of how much data needs to move. It's no longer about megabytes or gigabytes, it's in terabytes or petabytes. The traffic, right? It's not your regular client server, not south traffic from users outside to the application in the cloud. It is a lot of traffic is east-west. It's two clusters talking to each other. Right? Scaling, very different. Right? Latency requirements, very different. So in all, clearly there is a new architecture now that has become default where your training clusters live in one place, your data lives in another place, and your inference is now distributed around the globe. So this breaks traditional networking. You need a new architecture. Similarly, on the data sovereignty, we talked about all these laws being passed. No longer a storage problem, now a network problem. So there is a need. In fact, there is a survey which said 40% of enterprises around the globe are going to mandate data sovereignty controls on the data as it moves in the networks. So you need a network that is intelligent enough to handle that. So what it all adds up in terms of what I've said so far is that network, especially when we talk about cloud networking, multi-cloud networking, it is no longer about routing packets between the clouds. That was, call it multi-cloud networking 1.0. What the market is now demanding, what enterprises like yourself now require is, a network that can orchestrate AI workloads, that can optimize where those workloads are placed, and provide a deterministic performance to the users. Right? So what we believe at Tata Communications is that there are these 5 pillars of that new multi-cloud networking stacks. Right? It is around application awareness in the network, largely centered around the AI applications, the AI workloads, be it training, be it inference. Security that is not a bolt-on, not about service chaining, a next-generation firewall or a SASE stack. It is security that's intrinsically built in the network itself, be it end-to-end encryption or micro or macro segmentation and zero trust across the clouds. Unified visibility, where you can see end-to-end how your traffic flows, irrespective of cloud boundaries. Automation, in terms of where the network actually becomes code, that you can actually integrate with your data generation pipelines. Cost no longer just something that you look at and sigh about. Cost now becomes a policy factor that you can actually instruct the network to use cost as a means to how it routes packet, how it uses the specific transports based on the application. Right? So this is the new multi-cloud networking capability stack. So what do we do with it? Right? So we clearly have seen where the market is. We talked about the perfect storm and what is needed. So what we at Tata Communications came up with is a solution to that. Right? And in fact, the question that we asked ourselves and which you want to present to you is, what if your network could span every cloud in minutes? Right? So it is the fastest way in a way to convert your intent to an operational network. Time, again, not months, but hours, minutes and hours. No hardware needed. Again, we talked about the opposite of complex. So today, what we are unveiling is the ISO Plus multi-cloud network. Right? So it is 100% software. Right? So there is no investment. It runs on cloud infrastructure, your infrastructure, so no investment in any proprietary hardware needed. It is cloud agnostic. Not only is cloud agnostic, but it also makes it easy to add any new cloud that you invest in the future. Right? And it's what I call ephemeral networking. You create a network on demand when you need it, and you can bring it down when you don't need it. Right? And so there are 3 pillars of value proposition that we have focused on. First is automation, what we call autopilot networking, that it should be very easy for you to construct this network, right? Which again cuts across cloud boundaries and regions. And interestingly, we built a networking product that is not meant for network engineers. Our primary audience, primary target is the cloud architects who somehow even don't like dealing with networking. They believe it is just work. So in a way, the goal here is you just express your intent and we'll make the network happen. The second part is borderless insights, where you want to see end-to-end how your applications talk, how your users interact with the applications, right? How sometimes the components of our applications, which may be spread across different clouds, how they communicate with each other. And finally, intrinsic security. Again, security that is not bolt-on. It is actually woven into the fabric of the network itself, right? With end-to-end encryption, zero trust across clouds, both macro and micro segmentation built in. So in terms of just a glimpse of the broad architecture, of course we support variety of clouds, including our own YU cloud. There is, and we'll soon show you what the product looks like in terms of the value proposition it delivers. There is a very informative dashboard that tells you how your network is operating. And then of course the features I've already talked about. One of the things is we built a software overlay, again that's also agnostic to the underlay. Right? We very closely integrate with our own underlays, right? Whether you use Tata Communications Internet or our own private network, that's an option. but we also allow our solutions to work with third-party transports, be it, for example, cloud providers' internet or cloud providers' own backbone, and in future, some of our own competitors maybe, who actually provide programmable underlays that in some cases we can integrate with and offer you. So, if I were to, create a summary of what I've spoken about, and we'll soon get to a demo very quickly, is that we have built a product that based on certain design principles, says, and it's right in front of you. We abstract all these clouds. You just authenticate to our software just like you did, using your cloud's native consoles. We do go around, the software actually acts like a crawler and discovers every cloud resource that you have across your footprint, again, across the globe, across cloud providers. And then we ask you to provide it. What do you want to connect? What do you want to network? Provide your intent. We automatically, the software converts that intent to operational network. And then we continuously monitor how the network is operating and optimize that. Right? So again, we talked about a product that's engineered for AI, by AI, and with AI. Without further ado, again, pass on, I think if you switch back to us, so we'll give you a very quick glimpse of how our product operates. So essentially, we have provisioned a network. So what you see is, for example, a dashboard in terms of, it tells you, for example, a real-time meter in terms of what the network is costing you. In cloud, it is not just network costing, is not only about the bits and bytes that are moving around, but it's also the cost of the infrastructure, because you have to spin up cloud elements like, for example, an internet gateway or a NAT gateway, which actually cost you for the compute and storage that involves. So you get a glimpse of a picture of the real-time cost of what this network and the associated infrastructure is costing you in near real time. And then it shows you, how the network is actually operating. In this case, you have in one view the entire view of in terms of how your global network is now operating, which regions of the cloud are involved, and you can go and check how much of data that is flowing, for example, each region. So Akhil, if you want to just click on this and it will show you, hover on any one of them, it will show you how much data is flowing. Another thing I want to show is, we talk about the discovery piece. If you go to discovery, you just enter your cloud credentials, and actually we can show, we go and discover everything that you have in your cloud footprint, right? So if you can go back and just show, so for example, whether it is at the layer 3 level, the subnets, the route tables, the security policies, any VPC peerings or VNet peerings you may have, all that, and all the underlays that will be available from that region, everything is captured, again, across all clouds, across all VPCs and VNets. So we get essentially create a canvas for you on which you can then paint your network. Right? So if you now very quickly go back to the provisioning part, so we can show how we create a tag. For example, we have this, if you go back and try to create a demo tag, for example. Tag, we have a concept which is how do you segment your network, right? So you can get a tag, think of this as a grouping, and you can put any services running in Kubernetes clusters or subnets across these clouds and say these must communicate to each other, and everything that's outside this grouping should not communicate, right? And then you quickly select what those subnets would be or what those services would be. You press another button and automatically a network is now allocated. So the topology which is ideal for that intent to actually become operational is, there is a lot of graph theory and science behind it, we use AI to actually create the most optimal topology, network topology, to make that conversion from intent to an operational network, right? So we can give a glimpse of some of the networks that are operational or tags that are operational. That'll give you, for example, like here, this is one network that's created. What you show in the middle, the hexagon, so to say, these are the regional hubs and everything connected to them. But any point, what it ensures is that there is end-to-end traffic flow. Even if there were a failure to happen at any one time, there will be self-healing that will kick in and automatically route your traffic through an alternate route, for example. Another thing I want to very quickly talk about is the FinOps feature, which is how can you see in real time what this is costing you, right? Again, cost not just for visibility but also as a policy element which will dictate how the network is operating, which transport it can use, because there is built-in application awareness. It will use the most appropriate and the most cost-effective means to transfer data, right? In this case, a very a simple example where we show the cost summary in terms of across all clouds. So we can divvy up the information in so many ways. We want to understand how much each cloud is costing you, or how much the data passing through the cloud is costing you. So if you can go to the next tab at the top with the So in this case, you can find out, look, this is the infrastructure cost plus the cost of egress fees I'm calculating at each region. One glimpse, you can find that out, and it can point out, okay, if this region is really costing you high, then you can look at why that is happening, right? Use the other one, Cost Explorer. Yeah, this one in top 5, we tell which tags are costing you the most, or which clouds are costing you the most. There's so many ways you can view this information. And finally, in terms of historical data, in terms of how your costs have manifested itself over the last few months or over years, and then forecasting, right? So not only we tell you how much the whole operation is costing you now, but what is the forecast, depending on your past uses and what's happening, how much it will cost you going forward. But the key thing is that this also becomes a policy element, right? In terms of how we provision this network, the transport we use, so that it's the most cost-effective for you to operate this network. Very quickly, I'm going to go back. I think I'm running out of my time. Yes, so back to in terms of, in a nutshell, this network again is based on intent-based networking. We automatically generate the topology. We also provide interfaces to embed this in CI/CD pipelines, so actually you can treat this is a fully programmable fabric. You can actually generate this network using code, right? And then finally, it operates both at layer 7, at the application level, and at layer 3. And the layer 7 is aware of what's at layer 3. So it's a L7 aware L3 network. And it provides the benefits in terms of 30% reduction in the cost savings, 75% improvement in mean time to resolution for issues that you may have, and then generally at least 15% overhead reduction. Very quickly, sorry, we already went to demo. We already talked about this. I'm going to just quickly skip past this. In terms of use cases, right? So we talked about the distributed AI, sovereignty, compliant data flows. These are one of the two primary use cases that we are focused on. But beyond that, right, the other use cases in terms of cross-cloud zero trust, egress, cost management, for data resilience and business continuity, and then B2B, where you have to expose this your operations to a trusted third party with extranet as a service. So all those use cases are part of the offering that we have come up with. Finally, this is then, so I just want to leave you with this thought that AI is, redefining what networks must do. We talk about how AI workloads are very different from traditional workloads, so they place some unique requirements on the networks. But then, where, multi-cloud is defining where those networks must operate, right? So it is AI and a multi-cloud play, and essentially, so what we have built is, again, ISO plus multi-cloud network product that now you have the choice to use it as your growth platform going forward. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to engaging with you in terms of you adopting this platform and seeing for yourself how it can positively affect your business. Thank you.